Trauma. Everyone has it. No one talks about it. It seems easier to stay silent, ignore it, or stuff it than it does to honor it, learn from it, and finally heal. Trauma is debilitating, yet so often we suffer in silence. Trauma is not meant to be battled alone, and we are no longer going to suffer in silence. Together, we are creating a safe place to speak, to share our stories, and grow our strength as we heal. Together, we are giving a voice to those who have been silenced, bringing darkness into light, and letting God use our stories. Today, we find ourselves again. We relight our spark and let it light up the world. Stop SIS is a nonprofit organization dedicated to educating on issues of trauma and trafficking, as well as the amazing power of the healing journey. Welcome to Stop SIS. Hey, you guys. It's Denise Walsh and Rachel Timothy, and today we are going to talk about something that I think everybody can benefit from. In fact, I have a book I'm reading that I want to share with you guys. It's called You Happier by Dr. Daniel Amen. Rachel, have you heard of him before?
No, I don't think I have. I was thinking of a different Amen when you mentioned him before, spelled differently. So I don't know that I have heard of him.
He, from what I know, I believe it's out in California, just because everything's out in California, but he owns a brain clinic where they do brain scans, and he will, and what he's learned over the years is that like an ADHD brain is different than a quote normal brain. And different personality traits have different parts of the brain that fire differently. And so he has really been cutting edge in our brain impacting how we feel and impacting how we behave. And so if we want to behave or feel differently, then he would say, right, it starts with your brain health at the end of the day.
That makes sense.
So in this book, I've got a chapter slotted for us to talk about today because it was really interesting when I was reading through it. And again, these are things we all kind of know, but are we putting it into practice? He talked about the fact that what we eat impacts our brain health, because it's not that our brain is connected to our gut. It's that our gut is always communicating to our brain first.
Okay.
Like our gut is the thing that's sending out messages to our brain and to our body, and our brain is responding to that. So Tom Bilyeu, if you haven't heard of Tom Bilyeu, you should go look him up on YouTube. He's got a really great podcast where he interviews super successful people all the time. So he's like if you need to pick me up, I would say Lewis Howes and Tom Bilyeu. But Tom Bilyeu used to own Quest Nutrition, like the Quest bars. And then he sold his shares or however that worked. And he started Impact Theory. And Impact Theory has a few tenets, like the podcast is one. But he also talks a lot about health in their podcast. And then he also, this is just a side note, but he is like a firm believer in growth mindset versus lack, limited, victim, that kind of thing mindset.
Yeah.
And so his mission is to get the growth mindset in his front and in the front of as many 10 to 15-year-olds as possible. So he's making cartoons and movies and like action things and that kind of thing, all about growth mindset. Anyway,
that's awesome.
Yeah, that's his. He keeps saying, I'm going to build the next Disney. Like that's his thing. And he's like, it's a 70-year plan. But anyway, I was listening to him recently too. And he was saying, if you don't feel good, like if you're depressed, if you're anxious, if you don't have energy, he's like, the first place to start is your nutrition. And so we were chatting about this a little bit, and you were like, well, that's interesting, because what is one of the first things that goes when you're depressed or anxious and don't feel good is taking care of yourself.
Yep. Immediately your worth goes down, and that's the last thing that you want to do. I remember fighting myself internally to even take vitamins. I knew it would be good for me, and I had an internal struggle of, but I don't want to do something good for me because I don't love myself enough to do something good for me.
There was this element of I don't deserve to feel good.
Correct.
Okay. So if you don't deserve to feel good, you are going to do things consciously or subconsciously that continue to take you down the path of not feeling good.
Yeah. And it's interesting because you have all these people around you pouring into you, and you're almost destroying the work that they're doing yourself, because when you're alone, you're reminded in your own mind, no, I don't deserve this.
Right.
And you just
we talk about we have two kind of facets of our programs right now. We have the trauma program, Reflecting Ownership, where it's really working through the mud of the trauma, ripping off the Band-Aid and really working to heal that wound. And then we have 90-Day U-Turn, which is like a next step. Let's get your spark back kind of program. And what we've found is that they could go in either order, because if you're living in fight or flight mode, you might not be able to handle your trauma right now. And in 90-Day U-Turn, we get you out of fight or flight mode into rest and digest, and like give you the coping skills. So when life happens, you're not flying and, off in a tizzy or whatever. You're not in freak out mode, and you can handle it a bit better. And once you're breathing and sleeping and, getting kind of life back on track, then you can go to Reflecting Ownership and really work through the muck.
Yeah, you're right. It could go either way, because until you feel safe, you're not going to be able to process your trauma.
Right. So I've got just a few things highlighted that I thought we could talk about. And I think this is just, again, this is all so fascinating to me, which is why I keep learning about it. But okay, so there's 5 brain types. And the first one is called balanced. And this shows full, even, symmetrical activity all around. So when the brain is being activated, there's balanced activity. And let's see if the front, okay, so that's number 1, balanced. Number 2,
healthy.
Yes, I would say that's healthy. The other ones they wouldn't say they would say maybe would need a bit, like they might call it a bit more challenging, and you can do some things to support yourself or your loved ones. And I've got an example of one, but the next one is spontaneous. And I'll just read this. It says, if the front part of your brain was sleepy or lower in activity, so the frontal cortex compared to others, you were likely more creative and impulsive and spontaneous. So the front part of your brain is like decision making.
Interesting.
Hold on, I'm going to confirm that.
It blows my mind the way that God created our brains and how they're ever changing based on our experiences, so that we're more equipped to handle what we're facing. But he gives us the power to change how we think and everything. It just blows my mind.
Yeah, with neuroplasticity, you can retrain your brain to fire differently. Okay, I just looked it up just to confirm, because that's a big deal. The frontal lobe is the same part of the brain that's responsible for executive functions such as planning for the future, judgment, decision making, attention span, all that kind of stuff. So it would make sense that if the front part of your brain was lower in activity, you're more creative, impulsive, spontaneous, because you're not thinking through the decision. You're not necessarily like pro and conning it. You're just like, oh, that's fun. Let's go.
Wait, is that a blue personality?
Maybe. All right. The next one says persistent. And this is if the front part of your brain is more active, you would be persistent. So again, it would be like, here's something and I'm fixated on it a bit and I'm going until. So there's pros and cons to all of these different brain types.
Yeah.
The persistent would be less likely to switch gears. You know, if you're on a mission and you're doing something and then someone says, turn off the TV or come and do this, it's time to eat dinner, a persistent brain type would have a harder time with that.
Hmm.
In fact, this is the one where the example in the book is his wife. If the husband ever said, hey, do you want to go for a walk? The wife would say, I'm in the middle of something. No, you know? And so he learned to say, I'm going to go for a walk, but you probably don't want to come. And then she'd go, I'll go.
Oh,
And he
that's
just had to learn a new strategy to communicate with her because he learned that she was persistent and it was harder for her to switch gears. But if she could like pause and think a minute and it could be her own idea, that she would do it.
that's hilarious.
Isn't that funny? Okay, so then the next one is sensitive. So if you're, oh, this was interesting. Okay, if your emotional or limbic brain was more active than the average, then you tended to be more vulnerable to sadness and more sensitive.
Oh goodness.
The
I feel like
limbic brain is part of that fight or flight mode stuff. So let's look at that.
and there's good things to being sensitive. Let me just say that you can then be sensitive to other people and their feelings as well. Oftentimes we see sensitive as only a bad thing, but it could be a good thing.
Yeah. Okay, it says the limbic system is a set of brain structures located in the inner surface and responsible for a variety of emotional responses, including fear, pleasure, rage. So, yeah, that's like it has a few different systems. It has the fight or flight mode. It has it has the rest and digest. And if your limbic system is activated, then that's when you're on high alert a bit more.
Oh, okay.
And it wouldn't be surprising if you're on high alert, then you're really taking in your surroundings.
Yeah, you're in survival mode.
Including the feelings of other people.
Yeah, you're trying to read the situation. Oh
Right.
my goodness. I used to do that. Well, I still probably do to some degree, but trying to read people to figure out, okay, is this person safe? Are they not?
Yeah. Very interesting. Okay. And then last is cautious. So this is the amygdala, which is a part of the limbic system. So if your amygdala and your basal ganglia are more active than average, then you tend to be more anxious and cautious. So this is somebody who, is very detailed. They don't want to take risks. They may be more prone to anxiety. They like things in their own routine. And if it's out of the routine, then that can be out of their comfort zone and that kind of thing.
So can you bounce back and forth?
I think you have a more dominant way that your brain typically works, but if you work at it, you can. For example, if your frontal lobe is not firing very much and you're a spontaneous person and that spontaneous risk taking is getting you in trouble, then you could learn skills to really activate that frontal lobe a bit more.
That makes sense. Because what your goal is that balanced brain that you talk about in the beginning.
Right.
All of these areas are important, but can't be the only area you live in.
Right. And I don't know that they would even say the goal is to change someone's brain. They would say you can certainly work to that, but also learning skills to manage and live more wisely with the brain you do have.
Okay. So what's your thoughts then when medication is prescribed for things like anxiety, and how does that impact the way things light up?
So medication typically is impacting like serotonin levels and hormone levels, dopamine, that kind of thing. And so it would be adding or balancing those chemicals out in your brain.
Gotcha.
Now, Tim Bilyeu, he was mentioning in one of his trainings that he intentionally does things to raise serotonin, even if it's like if he's feeling poor, bad about a situation, he will go do something that he knows will raise his serotonin.
in order to fire that chemical essentially in his body. And so he has learned, and he's like, at the end of the day, you guys, we are the combination of neurochemicals. Like if we can learn to manage our neurochemicals, and if we know what we need to do to feel better, we don't need to feel better to go do those things. We know that doing those things will help us feel better. And so
it's kind of like when you're in fight or flight, or you're in that chaos mode. Is that the amygdala? No, or one of those, the limbic system.
Limbic system, yep.
But then we tell them, let's journal.
Yeah.
Does that pull you to the front part of your brain a little bit?
Yeah. It can help you get out of fight or flight mode and calm down the limbic system. And it can help to release that serotonin. So that's why music, no matter how mad you are, like turning music on can really help you emotionally.
If you turn the right music on.
Yeah, true. There's even a study that says if you smile,
are we
30
smiling?
seconds, even if you don't even if you don't feel happy,
yeah,
it will start firing those feel-good chemicals.
Well, it's funny because I mean, I do that instinctively with my kids. They'll have a big old frown on their face for something, and I'll do something to make them laugh, and it changes the whole atmosphere.
Absolutely, yeah. You're hacking their brain.
Yeah, just don't tell them.
Okay, so let's talk specifically about nutrition, because it is the goal of all of this is to really give our brain the best environment to thrive. We know that if we take the same cell and put it in a petri dish full of toxicity, it will die. Mm-hmm. If we took that same cell and put it in an environment of nutrients, like things the cell needs, it will thrive. That same cell is truly dictated by its environment. And so we can hack our health and our emotions and our brain health by giving it a really strong environment. So I'll read the sentence. It says, there is also a gut-brain connection that works in two directions. Anxiety can be linked to stomach problems, and stomach problems can be linked to anxiety. If you've ever had a gut-wrenching experiences, butterflies in your stomach, or feel like you're ready to throw up before a big test, then you're reminded that feelings of anger, anxiety, sadness, and stress coming from the brain can trigger ill symptoms in the gut. And so with that being said, our gut can impact how we feel. So he's basically just saying that our emotions impact us physically, right? On the other hand, positive, happy, hopeful thoughts lead to parasympathetic response, which is the opposite of fight or flight. Parasympathetic is rest and digest, relaxed muscles, lower blood pressure, healthier, all that kind of stuff. So we know that thinking plays a big part of, and we talk a lot about that, like taking your thoughts captive and that kind of thing. But I want to get to the page where it talks about what to eat for brain health.
Like thinking about all of this and thinking about the years that I spent with, going to counseling and like journaling, like I did 9 out of 10 of the right things probably, but I had an eating disorder and I wasn't fueling my brain. And so all the 9 out of 10 things that I was doing right really wasn't sinking in because I didn't have a strong brain to let it sink in.
Right. When you started eating in a more healthy and consistent way, how did you feel that impacted your emotions if you look back now?
Drastically. It was like the world made sense.
You could think clearly.
I could think clearly. Yes. And I started to hear comments from people over and over again of just how much I was changing and my responses to things were changing and my view of myself and my color in my skin. And like, it impacted me greatly.
You could actually implement the skills you were being taught.
Yep.
Because your brain could think and function more optimally.
Yeah. And that's why then I would have like these aha light bulb moments and I'd be like, Granny, this is what I just learned. And she's like, I told you that 3 years ago. Where have you been?
Yeah.
Well, it's in fight or flight.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So there's 6 chemicals of happiness. I found the page I was looking for. And it says dopamine. Dopamine is especially important for the spontaneous brain. It's interesting. And so for somebody who wants more dopamine, now dopamine, for example, if in those in addiction, when it's like they need a certain amount of dopamine to feel good. And so as the addiction gets stronger, more everyday life things don't release the dopamine anymore. Like I don't get joy out of hanging out with my family. I don't get joy out of going for a walk. I don't get joy out of nature because I need this addictive thing. And that's the only thing that brings me joy. And now I need more and more and more and more and more of it. And then you think of the expansion. So the opposite of that would be when everything brings like lights up dopamine in you and you're like, oh my gosh, look at the rainbow. You get joy out of the small things.
Mm-hmm.
And so dopamine is important for that spontaneous brain because they are quick to act and might get restless easily.
Okay.
Right. So they're not comforted in the moment, or you know what I mean? They're like, I gotta change. So it says it says a lot of things that I don't know words I can't say. Let's see. I'm like, what is this? Panax ginseng, okay. Vitamin D, omega-3 fatty acids, herbals, green tea, ginkgo biloba extract. But other things like magnesium also increase dopamine.
Okay.
The next one is serotonin. Serotonin is important for the persistent brain. And this is where probiotics come in handy. Magnesium again, vitamin D, vitamin B6. He would say having a good multivitamin with some of these extras if you have like a magnesium for mood and that kind of thing. Oxytocin is next. And
Wait,
this,
isn't that like a drug to make you not feel pain?
that's Oxycontin, right?
Oxycodone.
Oxycodone, yeah.
Uh-huh.
This is, I'm going to look this up too. Oxytocin. And basically this is saying it's a natural hormone that stimulates, oh, this is interesting. It basically helps your organs. It helps it carries messages. It says it's a natural hormone that manages key aspects of like the reproductive system as well as aspects of human behavior by carrying messages to different parts of the body. So function of oxytocin is trust, attachment. So parent-infant bonding. It's like that love, the love hormone.
Oh, it's Cupid.
Warm feelings. Yeah. And to produce oxytocin, the body needs vitamin C and magnesium.
Okay.
There's a few more. Endorphins. So endorphins, how would you describe endorphins? I know them from like running and things.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's what comes out when you've been exercising. That like it gives you the energy you need, right?
Yeah. I'm looking this up.
You know, this all reminds me of the conversation. I don't know if this is a good place to bring this up about Troy and the wellness guy. Troy? No.
Who's Troy?
Troy's the guy that you set me up with to have the conversation with.
Oh, yes. I was thinking of like a national story.
I think you set me up with him.
Yeah. So he's a functional medicine doctor in our area, and he's going to start working with Stop SIS clients who are looking to put their health back on track.
Yeah, and kind of just that next level of healing, you know.
Endorphins help relieve pain, reduce stress, and improve your sense of well-being.
Gotcha.
Melatonin, probiotics. You can see there's similar requests for each one. The other two, it says cortisol, and again, omega-3s, lowering the stress hormones. But there's food that can help too. So there's these supplements that can help give your body what it needs, because we don't always make the vitamins and minerals our body needs from just our body. Like we can give it nutrients, of course, from what we're eating. In fact, my sister had a bit of postpartum stuff, and she started taking a mineral vitamin, and within 3 days she felt so much better. And it was like, oh my gosh, my body needed that. And how do we know?
Right.
I remember working with clients who would tell me they were drinking pots of coffee a day. They were not drinking any water, and they had no job or purpose, and they were depressed.
Yeah.
I would say, yes, that is depressing. That would
Yes.
make anybody depressed, right? And so the first things we would do is increase water, decrease caffeine, put them on a multivitamin, go for walks, like get your body moving again.
It's funny because Troy was telling me when I was on the conversation with him about how I should put something else in my mouth before coffee. And he gave me a reason why. And so for the next several days, and still to this day, I am putting either food or drinking lemon water before I drink my coffee. And my husband's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, Troy said that this is really good for my health." He said, "I told you that 3 years ago." But when you're in the spot of like, accept, like needing that next level, then you accept those things. But when you're in that pit, you just need your coffee. Like, let's be
Get me out of, yeah, exactly. So we know that water really at the end of the day is one of the most important pieces, like foundational, right? Because our body is 40% water or something crazy, like our cells need water to survive. But after water, protein is the most abundant source in your body and plays a major role in the healthy growth and function of your body's cells, tissues, and organs. And protein can greatly impact your happiness levels.
What?
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
Very interesting.
Because we think of protein as medicine that should be taken in small doses with every meal and snack, at least every 4 to 5 hours, to help balance blood sugar levels.
I mean, it makes sense.
It's just interesting again, and I'm clearly not an expert in a lot of this. I just love learning about it.
Well, oftentimes, like especially for a trauma survivor, you're looking at food as a comfort, not as a medicine. Not something that's going to springboard you into feeling better tomorrow. You're looking at it as a comfort food for right now because my gut hurts.
Would you say that, and I'm sure it's a spectrum, is the natural response to not eat, or is the natural response to eat sugar, or is there a natural response to overeat?
It's one or the other. Extremes, for sure. I know when I went to Selah House and the eating disorder facility, 100% had been sexually abused as a child. So, I mean, an eating disorder is one of those ways that we react, and it ends up making our trauma responses worse.
Right. And it's because you're not giving your brain the necessary nutrients to heal.
Mm-hmm. But I'm going to be honest, like there was a point where I didn't care.
Yeah.
I felt like I couldn't, I don't know, survival was all that I could think of at that moment. And the pain was so much.
Yeah. Well, and at that time, trying new things is not in your scope of
No. And so I guess what I'm saying with all this, as I'm like explaining, 3 years ago they told me and I didn't listen. My point is, it's a step each day, each month, whatever, towards a healthier you. It's not drastically trying to implement all these things all at once in an extreme way and failing. It's just
Mhm.
taking little steps each day towards a better you. Wait, a you happier. See that?
So here's the foods and that I'll just share that it basically says to eat. And it's similar across all brain types, although they do have like different things listed. For the most part, it's fruits and vegetables, up to 8 servings a day to boost happiness. Tomatoes, beets, green leafy vegetables have been shown to lift mood. All high quality protein, so fish, seafood, turkey, chicken, beef, pork, and of course we would say organic if possible, because the organic stuff doesn't have all the pesticides and hormones in it. You think of these cows, they're beefing up with pesticides as vegetables, but with like hormones to make the cows bigger. And then we're eating those hormones. So as organic as possible is the goal. And if you live in the country like I do, you'll have a neighbor who can just give you their cow. Like, hey, Sally, let's go take you across the street. And then we have like omega-3 rich food would be flaxseed, salmon, walnuts, chia seeds, probiotic rich foods, which is for gut health. Brined vegetables like sauerkraut, pickles, kombucha, that kind of thing. Dopamine rich foods, turmeric, green tea, lamb, chicken, beef, eggs. And again, I think the goal is just to try to eat as whole food as possible. And
Okay, but then let's throw in, everything is so dang expensive right now.
oh yeah, totally. We can't even get eggs right now.
Right. So then, then what?
We all move to our own farm. Just kidding.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully there can be things that are just low in sugar
Yes.
and less artificial. Because you think of the things in boxes, even pretzels or potato chips, or, they're not food. They're not giving your body any nutrition. They're empty calories. And so you could be, quote, eating a lot, but still be nutrient deprived because your body is not getting anything helpful from those things.
Yeah. So just making each piece of food you put in your mouth count.
As much as possible. Yeah. Now, I know we buy things in bulk and then like cook up our chicken and just keep it in the refrigerator all week so we can easily grab it. We have protein powder. That's kind of an easier way to get protein in with a smoothie, or I'll even make protein pudding where you just put a little bit of water in it and eat it with a spoon, and it's super delicious. Trying to think of other hacks we've learned. So basically I keep my protein cooked through the week, utilize it as necessary, and then I just cook up vegetables with it. Now that does remind me, I have the oven on for sweet potatoes right now. I should check on. But like I'll also make sweet potatoes and put those in bulk, because I don't want to cook every meal for an hour, and so I have all these ingredients in my refrigerator and just grab them when I'm hungry.
Yeah, that's smart.
And I will say,
organized.
What's that?
Look at you all organized.
Well, I'll say that my children don't necessarily eat what I eat.
Yeah, same.
So we can't win them all. But I think at least having some things prepared for the week is helpful. Because if we're hungry, we will go grab the junk.
For sure.
What have you found to be helpful as you were transitioning out of an eating disorder into more consistent, healthy choices?
Oh, goodness. I don't even know if I am the one who should be talking about this, because I think I probably transitioned from an eating disorder to probably now disordered eating, but it's what's working for me as far as I'm eating, and I'm eating healthy. but it's routine. I literally eat the same thing every day, and I'm fine with that. I mean, no, food does not necessarily bring me joy. And but I don't even have to think about it anymore. I just know what I'm going to eat. I eat it and I move on with my day.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's pros and cons to both, right? I've been on a meal plan I've eaten the same thing for an entire year before. But as long as your meal plan has some diversity in it, then it should be okay.
I do mix up my meats in the evening now, and I have started doing eggs for lunch and things like that. So I'm mixing it up a little.
Good.
I'm a hot mess.
Well,
let's
hey, eating
start straight.
consistently is the goal, step one, right? And then expanding. But I know one time we were talking about this and you're like, I don't have sugar. I don't think that's not, cutting out sugar is very helpful to your body.
Right, but I understand the other side of it too, where it's my reason for cutting out sugar is because I'm scared of it. I'm scared I won't be able to stop or that it will trigger the eating disorder again.
Okay.
So I don't eat it out of fear.
Right.
But in a way, it's okay. So here I am justifying again. It's like an alcoholic who is saying, I won't take that first sip.
Right.
At least right now, sugar is it just feels off limits for me.
I used to be a person who said, I don't eat cookies. Just not my thing.
Okay.
Once I had one again, I was like, oh my gosh, I love cookies so much. But then I remember, oh my God, yeah, so again, I don't think that sugar is similar to, it's the most addictive substance. So to not choose to have that, as long as it's a conscious choice, isn't a bad thing. But there's a whole lot of other whole foods that could be good. Rice and
yeah. I just need to keep remembering to feed my body what it needs so that it can function to the fullest.
Yeah. Yep. Healthy fats.
Yeah.
Olive oil, guacamole, all that kind of stuff. Good thing is that healthy food is delicious too.
I love it. I really do. And one thing that was kind of obvious, and I don't know, how much to share or not share, but when you think back to our retreat that we had, those who were coming in who had struggling with eating disorders, they were not able to receive as well some of the things that we were giving them as far as, plans or encouragement or whatever, because they were in this battle that was taking everything they had just to survive. And as opposed to those who weren't in that same battle, they could accept more of our information and such.
Well, and when you're in an eating disorder, it takes so much brain space.
Yeah, you don't think it does, but boy, it does.
And it takes energy. And so when you have healed that, you have brain space and energy
You're a whole new person.
You're a whole new person.
You really are. With a functioning, lit up brain.
You're lit up brain in all areas.
You're lit. Is lit still is that a thing?
We'll bring it back.
Okay.
Well, I don't know if this was helpful, you guys. I'm clearly not an expert, but I think it's so fascinating. This is one book called You Happier by Dr. Daniel Amen, all about brain health and what you can physically do to support your brain. And it truly does start in your gut. I do have a resource if anybody's interested. It's called Broken Brain by Dr. Michael Hyman. He did a documentary about gut-brain connection years ago, and I bought it, so I have all the links. If anybody's interested, you can message us at STOPSIS@protonmail.com, and I'll get you all the links, or maybe I can put it in the show notes or something. But again, it's just fascinating to learn how our body responds to what we eat and how that impacts how we feel, what we think, all of that. It's just all really connected. And so if you're feeling depressed, if you're feeling anxious, then let's talk about adding more healthy choices into your diet. And I wouldn't be surprised if even just adding magnesium or adding a multivitamin, if that truly impacts your mood as well.
Yeah. And it'll at least give you the energy to do other things that will also, like, it'll be what would you call it? A ripple effect.
Yeah. Yeah, it will. And so for those who are STOPSIS clients,
Domino effect. Sorry.
Domino effect.
One of those.
Cascading. I don't know. All the same. If for those who are STOPSIS clients, just know that in our next round of 90-day U-turn, we're going to have a functional medicine doctor come in during our health week, because we have a health week. And
Never mind.
So we've got a resource. We'll connect you guys if it's helpful. All right. Well, I hope this was a good one, guys. I hope we entertained you at the very least.
Oh, thanks for being here.
All right. Well, have a good afternoon. And I guess our takeaway is to think like, okay, what is one thing we can do to add more health, to make a healthier choice today, whether it's water or vegetables or whatever, adding a multivitamin, all of those types of things. We'll put links to all this. I'll put links to the Broken Brain documentary, as well as You Happier, in the show notes if you're interested in continuing to learn. And we'll see you guys next week.
Thank you so much for listening to this powerful episode of Stop Suffering in Silence. If you are interested in booking Rachel to speak at your school, your church, or on your podcast, then please email OpenBlindEyes@protonmail.com. If you are interested in sponsoring a survivor on their healing journey and would like to donate to Stop SIS, then please check out the link in the description box or show notes below, or you can email stopsis@protonmail.com. And finally, if you are currently suffering in silence, or you know somebody who is, whether they're dealing with a current trauma or one from the past, then we will always recommend that you reach out to your local resources and find a counselor that you can trust, because nobody is meant to suffer alone. Have an amazing week, and thank you for being here.